Do you enjoy painting?
Hmm?
Do you enjoy painting?
I enjoy looking at them.
But not painting?
No, I never got into that.
I wish I could, but I'm colorblind.
Oh, well, that could be interesting. Make some interesting inventions.
Yeah. Maybe.
If you're colorblind, you mean the one behind us, you can't see that's a red road?
I don't see mid-colors, which means that there are certain colors in between, very like black or blue or red or yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It's in between colors that I have difficult to see. And the way that we found out was I was with my wife in a shoe store, and she kept on trying the same 2 pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
And I said, "Can you please go? Can you just take one? You're trying the same pair." She said, "But they're 2 different colors."
How interesting.
That's how we found out. And in a way, it could be interesting to paint maybe. I don't have the patience. I once did a installation on it. That was a lot of fun. Where I found an old nightstand, long
swastika?
Yeah, with a swastika on it.
Red, white, and black.
Yes. And I designed it so how the swastika could turn into a McDonald's logo in 3 beats.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. I read somewhere that, in terms of Scorpio, that basically you just photograph the way it was, almost like a documentary.
Yeah, the rooms that they were in, or the garage, all that was the way it was. I didn't add anything. And they had souvenir trophy, war trophy, some Nazi banners that had been brought back by the older brother. Because when it was made in the 60s, it was closer to the time of the war than now. And it was a big thing to bring back a trophy. Since they're illegal in Germany now, you can't display them. But many of them disappeared, taken away by the soldiers.
But did you just then decide, I'm gonna, you do what you do, and I'll just photograph what you do, and you just kept that separate, but did you almost direct them in their things, so that they just act naturally in front of you?
Well, Scorpio is a special case. I mean, it was different. It was more like, I didn't tell people what to do, I just let them do it. Except certain things like dressing, I said, well, no, I'd like to see you get dressed and put on your jacket and things like that. But they were normal. To them, it was just a normal thing they would do anyway. So it wasn't like I was asking them to dance and do something. Not typical of them.
So it was in a way the first cinema verite movie. Now, on my first movie, which was about drug dealers, it's a gangster movie, I shot a lot of real people and just let them do what they did. So it's a very interesting, if you can get the right images with naturalism, it becomes almost like, as you said, a special case.
Mm-hmm.
How did you choose the music?
What?
How did you choose the music?
Well, the music for Scorpio Rising were tunes that were popular that summer. And so they were being played on the radio, and you heard these tunes around, like Devil in Disguise, sung by Elvis Presley. And I had to clear the rights to use them in the film. I had in New York, there was this music rights clearance lawyer, so he took care of it.
So yeah, that's very interesting. Did you have a storyboard or anything? Or?
I did at the beginning, and then I got beyond that. I just winged it.
Came naturally.
But some of my earliest films were completely storyboarded because I had that Hollywood background and I knew that's the way they did it. And so my film, Puce Women, that never got made, I only made a little piece called Puce Moment, was a 45-minute film. It was completely storyboarded. And it's in the, some of the images that are drawn are in the little booklet in the DVD that I have.
I'm in a critical stage of my life as I'm kind of in a crazy black hole, and I don't know how to get out of it. Have you ever tried one of those things where it's like you're searching for something but you can't seem to find it, and then you found it, but there's an advice you would give the other filmmaker?
Well, not exactly. I mean, I usually have some project cooking away in my back burner, as I call it. And usually the problem is finance. And I've had a couple of lucky breaks. I knew one of the world's richest men, Sir Paul Getty, and without him I couldn't have made Mouse 7. And he underwrote that. But unfortunately he died at the age of 70, and but having a patron, I think, is perfectly honorable.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of paintings, famous paintings, could never have been made if they didn't have a patron. And of course, in the period like here in this museum, the patron was the church. But I like the way painters can put in a bit of their own world in whatever. I mean, they certainly put in enough flesh, nudity, you know, in beautiful light. So.
I have these Icelandic backers who have been helping me on my last 2 movies. And they were almost like my Icelandic sugar daddies, because they would really help me.
Yes.
But now
Iceland, are you familiar with the country? How did you find them?
Well, they found me.
Oh, I see.
And in a similar way, never having any money to do my films other than what I can con myself into. They have been very helpful. But now Iceland has no money because of the financial crisis.
Some kind of financial meltdown.
So that means that my backers, I don't know if I still have them. That's a great fear. Because you have chosen this canvas and it's just so expensive, even though it is cheaper than the other art forms. It's still
yeah, it does have expense involved.
But you never went to the aging route. You never wanted to do a proper Hollywood movie at one point. I mean, after Scorpio, which was...
No, I was approached by a producer who wanted me to Hollywoodize Scorpio Rising and make it a feature length and put in a love story with a girl. And I said, no, I won't do it. That's distorting the whole thing. And now I'm sort of sorry I didn't, because it might have led to something interesting. But I'm not really sorry. I mean, you know, the film exists like it exists, and it would have been bending it out of shape to put in more narration and dialogue and things. I don't think so. It wouldn't be me anymore.
So I always justify that when I lie at night, thinking, how am I going to survive next month's bills? And I said, if I die, which I will at one point, at least they can't take away that I did it my way. And that goes back to my conversation with Eli Kazan when I asked him, what advice would you give a young filmmaker? And he looked at me for a very long time, it was about 10 years ago. And he said, my advice to you is to do it your way.
Yeah, when you're in a commercial situation, because I know lots of people that work in independent films, you know, the kind of films that are sent to Sundance or something like that. And getting the money together is one of the most difficult parts of it. And to me it would be exhausting, psychologically, to go through all that. But they do, and they often get their films made, even if they win a prize, they're never shown in theaters because there isn't any release for them. So they sort of go direct to DVD and have a small sale that way. But movies are meant to be seen on a big screen, just like these are big canvases. The scale is part of it.
Do you watch a lot of modern movies at all? Or do you watch them? Do you still keep up the same way that you used to?
I'll go see something by somebody I'm following to see what they're up to. For instance, I'm a friend of Tim Burton, so I always go to see what he's up to. And now we were at a film festival together in Mexico, and that's how I got acquainted with him for 2 weeks. So, we were English speaking, so we were speaking to each other more.
Hola.
And but apparently he's going to do his version of Alice in Wonderland now, which is his latest project, which could be quite interesting. But
so many people that has verbally expressed your inspiration. Do you follow any of their works, or do you feel that they have ever helped you? I mean, I remember reading about Orson Welles in his last days, when he really had his revival, and he was like a patron, and everybody talked about how much he had been a part of their filmmaking lives, but yet nobody would give him $2 or $3 million to go make a movie.
Well, it was almost a form of torture, of sadism, because some of them could have, including, well, I won't mention the names, but some of the ones that were associated with him as being someone who was very sympathetic to him, never came through with the money that he needed. So he's left a lot of unfinished pieces around. I've seen some of the excerpts from the unfinished films. And something like Othello took a long time to finish, even you almost can see the actors growing a little older.
And longer.
Yeah.
But what about some of the people that, do you see your own, can you see your own inspiration in other people's films? Can you see, God damn it, it took that from me in a way?
No, it isn't that I feel like a paranoia about having my ideas picked. I don't react that way. I mean, all artists are magpies. Magpies were the bird that would steal the nest of another bird. And so people pick up ideas from every source, and including me. But I follow certain people working in the commercial realm, like Marty Scorsese, because he's helped me. And I find he's got an interesting mind, and he's always like trying different things too. He's like stuck in one type of film. And so I find that interesting.
He's definitely one of the people that, for my generation, was very much a part of, like a generation before me, but still my generation, talk a lot about his work as well. But then it's interesting, the influences you then get to see, because he's very verbal about his influences, as am I, in a sense. I don't mind saying who I stole from. I just say you have to steal from the best,
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it. And Scorpion Rising, I remember you telling me that it really played nationally in a very big way and internationally.
Well, it was blown up to 35 millimeters, so it played in what we call in America art houses, which is cinemas, independent cinemas that are, there's usually one in every big city, or maybe more than one, like in Los Angeles. that will play independent films and that aren't hooked up to the studio circuits.
Did you know what you were going to do next? Like, did you already know that this is what you were going to do afterwards when you made the film after Scorpio, or did you search around, or?
Well, I was traveling and maybe a little out of sometimes it's a bit difficult for me to remember which came first in my films, but one I was very happy with because I succeeded in conquering the bureaucracy was in Italy, was Ode Artifice, filmed in the Tivoli Gardens in what they call Tivoli. It's their mountain town, and it's the Villa d'Este. And I don't think I could do it today, but I got permission to film in the garden and to close off certain parts of it, even though it's very popular with tourists that come up there in busloads. And yet I could, what is it, a rope across certain part of it and have that all to myself. So that was a fun experience.
Do you almost see yourself as you were perfecting your art form and your approach to it? That were you ever afraid of repeating yourself? Were you ever afraid of, I guess sometimes great success can also bring great burden or great...
Well, I have not had great success. Success, I mean, my name is known and my films have been seen all over the world, but usually success means some sort of monetary reward, and I haven't had it. The reason I wrote my Hollywood Babylon books was to bring in some steady income, and they were both bestsellers, Hollywood Babylon 1 and 2. And there was at one point a Hollywood person approached me and wanted to turn it into a feature film. And I explained how difficult it would be, almost impossible, unless you're going to make it all of clips, which is another type of film. You can't find actors to impersonate other actors. People have tried it with W.C. Fields and Clark Gable, it never works. And so I said, I don't think so, it's not going to work.
And that was it?
Yeah.
Are you doing a part 3?
Hmm?
You're not doing any more, are you?
Doing what?
Hollywood Babylons.
Well, I've written 2 and I have sketched out a 3rd one, but I can't do it because of legal advice, and I'm dealing with people that are alive. It's easier to write about people who are dead. Not that you could make calumny against the dead, but I could deal with the facts in a quiet way without expecting a lawsuit or something. And the main reason I decided not to bring out the 3rd Hollywood Babylon is my chapter on Scientology, which included people like Tom Cruise. And I was told, you'll get sued for sure, because they sue everybody. That's part of their harassment technique. For instance, Time magazine did a story on it about 10 years ago. And the lawsuit by Scientology of Time magazine, which is world famous, is still dragging on. It's just to annoy them today. It never was resolved, and so it goes back to court every now and then.
But isn't the whole point if you don't have anything to take, they can't really sue you?
Well, perhaps, but I mean, I publish my books in the basement, but I suppose I could. I mean, printing has actually become quite simplified these days, but I don't want to do it. In other words, I need a name publisher like I had before, E.P. Dutton, which is a well-known name, or the first one was published by Rolling Stone magazine. Their book division is called Straight Arrow Books. And So I've always, then they're in charge of distribution, getting into book stores and so forth, because that is as complicated as trying to get a film distributed and in theaters. You know, there's so much product out there in books, and even, you know, there's like the favorable tables which are up front near the door. They put something in the window, and it makes all the difference in the sales in books. And of course, it has to be reviewed and so on.
You get good reviews, you know, that affect the sales, and how did your last book do, and so forth.
At any rate, I've laid it aside, and I doubt if I'll ever put it out. It isn't finished anyway, it's just sketched.
But when you did, after, you know, the Demon Brother, and then went into Lucifer Rising, did you see that as a new era in your kind of exploration of the art form as an artist, you know, as a painter, using film as a canvas? Did you see yourself entering new territories in terms of creatively?
Well, I always hope I'm doing that, but when I had this project for Lucifer Rising since the 60s in San Francisco, and I had my first poster done before the film was made by Rick Griffin, who's a famous sort of psychedelic artist. They're now collectibles, these posters. But it was still called Lucifer Rising, but at that time I called it a love vision by Kenneth Anger, which kind of reflects the hippie era. And so it went through several mutations, cast changes, but I've had some interesting people involved because they were all my friends. In the final version, Marianne Faithfull, the singer, does not sing in the movie, but she plays Lilith, who's the female destructive demon. And again, it's typecasting. How it's typecast because I saw this in her, that she has some Lilith in her, as many women do. Other women have Eve in them, or Aphrodite, or Venus, or whatever. But you could see these little glimpses in their character. And then I had Donald Campbell, that I typecast him as Osiris, the Lord of Death, because he was obsessed with death and seemed to enjoy sort of his own idea of dying and so forth. And eventually he did shoot it, like in the film Performance that he directed, he shot himself in the head. And I wasn't at all surprised, you know, sort of had predicted this in the work. And in a sense, I thought it was rather anticlimax that he shot himself. Because, you know, and I told him to leave Hollywood because he was stuck in Hollywood and they'd rejected about 3 scripts. And he was living with a young lady that my opinion of her is that she's like a bad luck, cheetah car. And that he was stuck in a bad, sort of a self-destructive relationship. And so shot himself in a little house in Hollywood Hills. But he was a talented fellow. I mean, Donald Campbell.
So it's almost like the casting was very precise for Lucifer Rising. You really had thought out.
It was like what I call magical casting.
In that way, but also in terms of very much how, starting from Fireworks, which was also a group of friends and associates of yours in your mother's and parents' house, to Lucifer Rising, which is almost like approach like a normal director with typecasting and setups, and you went to travel around the world, and it's almost like...
Yeah, it was quite a bit of fun to film. I mean, I went to Exterstein, which is a Celtic site in Germany in the Black Forest that the Nazis took over because they revived certain elements of paganism to justify what they were doing. And they used to have a ceremony there where the Hitler Youth were given their ceremonial little daggers. And in the same place where I filmed. I mean, I knew that when I filmed it. They used it.
But almost through that process of in your work, in coming to that stage where, as you were saying, it's almost like you're casting, you're writing, you're traveling, you're shooting a more ambitious setups and so forth. Afterwards, was there a reason why you didn't, 1 year later, did another as long or as big or as wide? I mean, how was it, what was your life like after Lucifer Rising? I mean,
well, it was fine. I mean, you know, it wasn't that I had some disappointments, but the film was shown quite widely. And I'd go to various festivals, and places I'd never been before, like Buenos Aires. Interesting to be invited to these festivals. But I'm never there long enough to really, in other words, they sort of fly you in 2 weeks and out. You're lucky if you get 2 weeks. But
you never had anything afterwards that you wanted to move on to or anything like that? Something. It's like, at least for me, in your work, that very intuitive, which I think is very inspiring, kept on evolving. And it's almost like, for me, it's just, wow, was there a reason why you didn't do an hours, or was that again struggling with money? Was it distribution had changed in the 80s compared to what it was like in the 60s?
Well, I'm still making films, whether I make them from archived material that I love, like Ishville that's made from old Nazi newsreels and propaganda films that I've cut together from the period 1933 to 1938. Pre-war, there's nothing about the war in the film per se. It's about the Boy Scouts, and which I find them charming, like evil little insects, or like scorpions or something. You know, they're fascinating, but you realize their potential. And of course, most of them got killed. They were slaughtered in various places.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting to hear you talk about how you, and not talk about things that are very, it's just very, very inspiring to hear. It's very glad.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind signing my Hollywood Babylon book to me?
Okay.
Okay, I'll just get it over here.